I smelled like hope the night my life ended and began again. That's what Olivia always said about the perfume, that it carried the scent of hope for women who'd forgotten what hope felt like. She'd mixed it herself in the back room of our bakery, the same way her grandmother had taught her in Addis Ababa, before the Troubles, before she fled to Korea with nothing but the clothes on her back and a formula written in her grandmother's handwriting on paper that smelled like lavender and smoke. I wore it every day. Even now, at 2:47 in the morning, loading trays of injera-based pastries into my ancient Hyundai for today's catering job. The perfume clung to my wrist where I'd applied it 16 hours ago. Amber and something floral I could never name. A bass note of old books and wooden church pews. It was the smell of my childhood, of Olivia's hands covered in flour, of safety before I understood that safety was temporary. The catering gig at Parks was supposed to save me. 3,000,001 for one night of desserts. Enough to make this month's rent on the bakery. Enough to keep the lights on for another 30 days while I figured out how to make 30 days turn into 60, into 90, into somehow surviving the 50,000,001 in debt that sat on my chest like a boulder, crushing the air from my lungs every time I tried to sleep. I didn't sleep much anymore. Itaewon was quiet at this hour, the kind of quiet that felt like the neighborhood was holding its breath. I'd grown up here, in these narrow streets, where everyone knew everyone's grandmother, and nobody talked to cops, and the rules were understood without being spoken. You didn't ask where money came from. You didn't notice certain men entering certain restaurants through back doors. You didn't cross the Park family. I was about to walk straight into their restaurant carrying 200 fusion desserts and the perfume that would destroy everything I thought I knew about survival. But I didn't know that yet. If you're already hooked, hit that subscribe button, because what happens next will change everything. The service entrance to Parks was propped open when I arrived at 4:32 p.m., 14 minutes before I was supposed to be there. I've always been early to everything. Anxiety has a way of making you punctual. I maneuvered the first tray through the doorway and into a kitchen that smelled like garlic and money. Industrial stoves gleamed. Copper pots hung from racks like art installations. This wasn't just a restaurant. This was a statement. Dessert girl? A man in chef's whites looked up from his prep work. His accent was pure soul, the kind that came from generations of family power in Gangnam. Sarah Tesfu. I'm catering the desserts for the private event. Back rooms through there, he gestured with a knife toward double doors. They're still setting up. You got 40 minutes before service. I hauled 6 trays of desserts through those doors and into a private dining room that probably cost more to decorate than my entire year's revenue. Chandeliers that looked like they'd been stolen from a palace. Dark wood paneling, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the street where Itaewon bled into Gangnam. And a table, a long, dark table where 7 men sat in suits that cost more than my car. I froze. Sorry, I didn't realize. I can come back. You're fine. One of the men waved me forward without looking up. They were deep in conversation, the kind where voices stayed low and every word seemed weighted. I set up the dessert display on the sideboard as quietly as possible, trying to be invisible, trying to remember that this was just a job, that these were just men having a meeting, that I was just the girl who made fusion pastries and stayed out of everyone's business. That's when he looked up. I didn't see his face at first, just the way his entire body went still, the way his hand, reaching for a glass of soju, froze in midair, the way every head at the table turned to look at him, then followed his gaze to me. He stood slowly, 6 feet of coiled tension in a charcoal suit that fit him like it had been born on his body. Dark hair pushed back from a face that was all sharp angles and harder edges. Eyes so dark they looked black in the dim light. And he was staring at me like I'd just risen from the dead. Everyone out, his voice was quiet, controlled. The kind of quiet that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Nobody moved. Now. The room emptied in 90 seconds, men in expensive suits filing out with confused glances over their shoulders. The doors closed with a soft click that sounded like a gunshot in the sudden silence. Then he locked the door. My heart was trying to break through my rib cage. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my legs had forgotten how legs worked. I was alone in a locked room with a man who'd just cleared it with 2 words. A man whose name I knew from neighborhood whispers, Park Min-jun. The youngest head of a crime family in Seoul's history. The man who'd taken over when his father died, under circumstances nobody talked about. He crossed the room toward me, not fast, deliberate. Each step measured. Then he stopped 3 feet away and closed his eyes. He inhaled, and when he opened his eyes again, there were tears in them. "Where did you get that perfume?" His voice cracked on the last word. This man who'd just commanded a room of dangerous men looked like he was barely holding himself together. My grandmother made it. Why? What was your grandmother's name?" He took another step closer. I could smell his cologne now, cedar and something darker. Ayana Tesfu. She owned the bakery on Ayana. He breathed the name like a prayer, like a wound. She worked at Mescal Perfume House in Addis Ababa. My throat went dry. "How did you know that?" He turned away from me, one hand coming up to cover his mouth. His shoulders were shaking. When he spoke again, his voice was barely audible. "Because my mother wore that perfume. Every day. It was the only thing that made her smile after she married my father." He turned back, and I saw something in his face that terrified me more than the locked door. More than his reputation. More than any of this. I saw grief so raw, it looked fresh. Ayana Tesfu was my mother's best friend. They worked together at Mescal's before everything fell apart. Before my mother married into my father's family and Ayana fled to Korea. The room tilted. "Your mother knew my grandmother." Sewaso. That's what the perfume was called. The promise. His eyes locked on mine. My mother wore it on good days. Days when my father was away. Days when she'd let herself remember what her life was supposed to be before she became Park Ji-won. His jaw tightened. She stopped wearing it 3 months before she died. I was 16. I haven't smelled it in 15 years. I don't understand why. Your grandmother recreated it. The formula was supposed to be lost when Mescal House closed in 1998. My mother cried when the bottle ran out. She said it was like losing the last piece of who she was before. He stopped. Started again. Your grandmother kept her promise. She recreated it. She kept hope alive when my mother couldn't. Tears were sliding down my face, and I didn't remember starting to cry. My grandmother said she made it for women who needed to remember that better things were possible. She made it for your mother. Park Ji-won died when I was 16. My father killed her. He said it flatly, matter of fact. Not with his hands, with his fists over 20 years until her body just gave up. I killed him 6 months later and took over the family. I was 17. The air left my lungs. I'm telling you this because you need to understand what that perfume means. It's the only soft memory I have from a childhood where my father taught me that violence was the only language that mattered. When I smell it, I'm 8 years old again, hiding in my mother's closet while she reads me stories before my father comes home. I'm 10, watching her spray it on her wrists and seeing her smile for 5 seconds before she remembers she's not allowed to smile. His voice broke. I'm 16, standing at her grave, swearing I'll never let anyone hurt someone I love ever again. He took one more step, close enough to touch now. So when I ask where you got that perfume, I'm really asking. How is it possible that after 15 years of believing hope died with my mother, it just walked into my restaurant wearing the face of someone I don't know but can't stop looking at? Drop a comment right now. Did you see that coming? Because it's about to get even more complicated. I should have run. Any sane person would have grabbed their trays and left. But I stood there in that locked room with a man who'd just confessed to murder, and all I could think was that my grandmother had loved his mother, that the perfume on my wrist connected me to a woman I'd never met who died because her husband was a monster. That Park Min-jun was looking at me like I held the answer to a question he'd been asking for 15 years. My grandmother never told me, I said finally. She never mentioned your mother. She just said the perfume was important. That I should wear it every day. That it would protect me. Protect you from what? She died before she could tell me. The words hurt coming out. Cancer took her 8 months ago. She made me promise to keep the bakery open, to keep making the perfume, to never stop wearing it. I touched my wrist where the scent pulsed with my heartbeat. I thought she was being sentimental. I didn't know there was a reason. Min-jun's hand reached out, stopped inches from my wrist. May I? I nodded, not trusting my voice. He lifted my wrist to his face and inhaled. His eyes closed. When he opened them, something had shifted in his expression. The grief was still there, but underneath it was something else. Something that made my stomach flip. It's exactly the same. Every note, amber, jasmine, old books, church incense. His thumb brushed across my pulse point so gently I barely felt it. But I felt it everywhere. Your grandmother was an artist. My mother used to say that Ayana could capture emotions in bottles. Hope, safety, love. His eyes met mine. She wore hope. What does it mean that her granddaughter wears it too? It means I'm trying to survive. The truth came out before I could stop it. It means I'm 50 million in debt trying to keep my grandmother's bakery alive in a neighborhood where rent goes up every month and people don't buy expensive pastries anymore. It means I'm working 80 hours a week for jobs like this one that paid just enough to buy me 30 more days of drowning. My voice cracked. It means your mother and my grandmother were friends who both knew what it felt like to need hope in a bottle because the world was crushing them. And now I'm wearing the same perfume, in the same city, feeling the same way. Minjun's jaw tightened. What bakery? Ayana's kitchen. On the main street in Itaewon. It was Olivia's. Before that, it was her mother's. 3 generations of Tesfu women making fusion pastries and barely surviving. I know it. His voice was quiet. I've walked past it 1,000 times. The window with the green awning, the smell of Berber and butter. His eyes searched mine. That's your grandmother's legacy, and you're losing it. In about 60 days, yes, unless I figure out how to make money appear out of thin air. Something dangerous flickered across his face. No. I pulled my wrist from his grip. Whatever you're about to offer, no. I don't need a rich man to fix my problems. I don't need charity. I need to do this myself. It's not charity, it's debt to a different person. I've seen how this works in the neighborhood. Someone offers help. Then they own you. Then you can't leave because leaving means you're disrespecting the help they gave you. I stepped back. My grandmother fled Ethiopia to escape that system. I'm not walking back into it wearing her perfume. For a long moment, Minjun just stared at me. Then, impossibly, he smiled. It was small and sad and made him look younger. Your grandmother taught you well. He moved to the door, unlocked it, but didn't open it. The desserts are perfect. I'll make sure you're paid tonight. But Sarah Tesfu. He looked back at me. Be careful. That perfume marks you as someone who mattered to my mother. And my mother mattered to me. Which means whether you want it or not, you've just become someone I won't let disappear. He opened the door and left me standing there with questions piling up like debts I couldn't pay. I should have understood then what he was really saying. That the perfume had already changed everything. That hope, when it comes in bottles, always has a price. But I didn't understand. Not yet. I packed up my trays and left Parks at 7:43 p.m. with an envelope containing 3 million in cash and a business card that had nothing on it but a phone number written in pen. I didn't call it. I was determined to forget the whole thing. Forget Park Minjun and his dead mother and the way he'd looked at me like I was a ghost made flesh. That determination lasted 46 hours. On Monday morning at 6:15 a.m., I arrived at Ayana's kitchen to find the front window smashed. Glass glittered on the sidewalk like diamonds. The green awning hung in shreds. My legs went numb. I pushed through the broken door and saw the destruction. Ovens torn apart. Refrigeration units destroyed. 3 generations of family recipes scattered across the floor. Pages torn from my grandmother's notebooks. Her handwriting, that careful, precise Amharic script. Trampled by boots I hadn't heard coming. On the counter, someone had spray-painted 2 words in Korean. Last warning. I stood in the ruins of my grandmother's legacy and understood finally what she'd been trying to tell me. The perfume doesn't just carry hope, it carries targets. It marks you as someone who refuses to disappear, someone who keeps surviving in a neighborhood where survival is negotiated by men who communicate in warnings and broken glass. My hands were shaking when I pulled out the business card and dialed the number. He answered on the first ring. I was wondering how long it would take. Someone destroyed my bakery. My voice didn't sound like mine. They left a message. This wasn't random. No, it wasn't, he sighed. Where are you right now? Standing in the middle of everything my grandmother built. Everything I've been trying to save. Stay there. I'm coming to you. Minjun. They did this because of me, Sarah. The Choi family has been pushing into Itaewon for 6 months. They're targeting businesses on your block because they know I own the building next door. They're trying to force me into a war. His voice went cold. They just gave me a reason to fight it. The line went dead. I stood in the wreckage and smelled my grandmother's perfume, mixing with spray paint and something that might have been gasoline. Somewhere in the ruins, I could hear water dripping from broken pipes. The sound was rhythmic, patient, like a countdown. What happens next will make you question everything. Keep watching. Park Min-joon arrived in a black Genesis SUV 17 minutes later with 4 men who looked like they'd been built specifically to hurt people. He walked through my broken door in a suit that probably cost more than my destroyed equipment, took one look at the spray paint, and said something in Korean that made his men scatter like trained dogs. Then he turned to me. "Pack a bag. You're coming with me." "I'm not going anywhere. I have to clean this up. I have to call insurance. I have to." "You have to stay alive." He crossed the space between us in 3 strides. "The Choi family doesn't give warnings, Sarah. They give ultimatums. This wasn't a threat. This was them telling you that you're in the way. And in this neighborhood, people who get in the way disappear. Then I'll go to the police. The police are paid to look the other way. Half the department takes money from the Chois. The other half takes money from me." His jaw tightened. "This isn't your world. You don't understand the rules." "Then explain them to me. Because I'm not leaving my grandmother's bakery to hide in your house while someone destroys everything she built. Your grandmother left Ethiopia because she understood exactly what I'm trying to make you understand." His voice dropped. "She understood that survival sometimes means retreat, that staying to fight when you're outnumbered and outgunned isn't brave, it's suicide. She also taught me that running away means they win. She taught you wrong." He said it flatly. "She ran because she wanted you to exist. She ran so her daughter could have you. She ran so you could stand here wearing that perfume and fighting with me about survival." His eyes burned into mine. "Don't disrespect her sacrifice by getting killed out of stubbornness." The words hit like a slap. "You don't get to tell me about my grandmother." "No, but my mother does." He pulled his phone from his pocket, scrolled, then held it out to me. "My mother's diary. I found it after she died. There's a section about Ayana, about the day Ayana told her she was leaving Ethiopia, about the promise they made each other." I took the phone with trembling hands. The screen showed a photo of a page, handwritten in Korean. I could read it well enough. Olivia had made sure of that. "Ayana leaves tomorrow. She's pregnant and terrified. Her husband will kill her if he finds her. She asked me to come with her, but I can't leave. Taewon would never let me take the children, so we made a promise. She will survive for both of us. She will build a life where women don't have to choose between safety and existence. And someday, if our daughters or granddaughters ever meet, they'll know that we loved them enough to make impossible choices." My vision blurred. "She was pregnant when she left? Your grandmother carried your mother across continents to save her from a man who would have destroyed them both." Minjun's voice was gentle now. "And your mother had you. And now you're standing here arguing with me about staying in a building the Choi will burn down with you inside, if it means hurting me." He took the phone back. "Ayana kept her promise. She survived. She built something beautiful. Now honor that by letting me protect what she created." I looked around at the destruction, at the broken ovens and shattered glass, at the red spray paint that was already starting to drip, looking more like blood with every passing second. If I leave, they win. The bakery dies. If you stay, you die. The bakery dies anyway. He moved closer, close enough that I could smell cedar and see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. "Let me protect you. Let me protect this place. And when it's safe, you come back and rebuild. But Sarah?" His hand came up, hovering near my face without touching. "You have to trust me, the way your grandmother trusted my mother, the way our families trusted each other before everything fell apart. I don't know you, no, but you know what I'm capable of. You know I killed my father. You know I run operations that exist outside the law. You know I'm dangerous." His voice dropped to a whisper. "What you don't know yet is that I'm more dangerous to the people who threaten what I care about than I am to the people I'm protecting. And right now, whether you like it or not, I care about keeping Ayana Tesfu's granddaughter alive." 3 men in suits walked past the broken window. They didn't look at us, didn't slow down, but I saw the way Minjun's men tracked them. Saw the way hands moved toward guns I hoped weren't there. How long? My voice came out small. How long until it's safe? I don't know, but I promise you'll have a bakery to come back to. His eyes held mine. I promise on my mother's grave that I will protect what your grandmother built, even if you hate me for how I do it. I thought about my grandmother fleeing Ethiopia with nothing but a perfume formula and a promise. About her friend Jiwan who couldn't run, who stayed and died slow under her husband's fists. About the choices women make when all the choices are bad. One condition, I said. Name it. You don't pay my debts. You don't buy me. Whatever this is. Protection, business, whatever. I'm not a charity case. I'm not someone you get to save so you feel better about the things you do in the dark. Something flickered in his expression. Respect, maybe. Or recognition. Deal. You're not a charity case. You're someone I'm choosing to protect because the alternative is unacceptable. What's the alternative? His eyes went cold. Finding your body in the Han River and spending the rest of my life knowing I let another woman die because I wasn't strong enough to make her listen. The weight of that statement sat between us like a third person. Okay, I whispered. I'll come with you. He nodded once. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call in Korean too fast for me to follow. When he hung up, he looked at me with something almost like sadness. My men will secure the building. They'll document everything for insurance. They'll make sure no one else touches this place. He gestured toward the door. But we need to leave now. The Choi have someone watching this block. The longer you stand here, the bigger the target on your back. I grabbed my grandmother's recipe books, the ones that hadn't been destroyed, and a photo of Olivia from the counter. Everything else would have to wait. At the door, I turned back one last time. The morning light coming through the broken window made the spray paint look like it was glowing. Last warning. What if I'd said no, I asked. What if I'd refused to leave? Minjun's expression didn't change. Then I would have had you carried out. And you would have hated me, but you'd be alive to hate me, which is better than the alternative. That's kidnapping. Yes, he said it simply. I've done worse things for worse reasons. He held out his hand. After a long moment, I took it. His hand was warm, steady, completely at odds with everything I knew about him. We walked out of Ayana's kitchen together while his men secured the perimeter and the neighborhood watched from windows, with the blind eyes Itaewon had perfected over generations of looking the other way. I didn't know it yet, but I was leaving behind more than a bakery. I was leaving behind the last illusion that my life was my own, that I could survive in Park Min-jun's world without becoming part of it. The perfume on my wrist smelled like hope, but hope, I was learning, sometimes smells like smoke. Min-jun's penthouse occupied the top 2 floors of a building in Gangnam that I'd walked past 1,000 times without realizing what it was. From the outside, it looked like any other luxury high-rise. Glass facade, minimalist design, completely unremarkable except for the price tag. Inside was a different story, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Han River. Furniture that looked like it belonged in an art gallery. A kitchen with marble counters that probably cost more than my entire bakery. Everything was dark wood and clean lines and the kind of expensive minimalism that came from having enough money to buy anything and choosing to buy almost nothing. Second floor is yours. Min-jun set my bag. 1 bag. That's all I'd been allowed to pack. On a leather couch that probably cost more than my car. Bedroom, bathroom, sitting room. You have privacy. I won't come up there without permission. Where's your room? 3rd floor, completely separate. He moved to a bar cart and poured 2 glasses of soju without asking if I wanted one. House rules. You don't leave without telling me. You don't answer the door. You don't go near the windows at night. My men are downstairs watching the building. They're not here to keep you in. They're here to keep the choice out. He handed me a glass. I took it because I didn't know what else to do with my hands. How long has your family lived in Korea? I asked. 4 generations. My great-grandfather came over from Busan in the 20s. He worked the docks, saved money, bought a restaurant. That restaurant became 3 restaurants. Those restaurants became a network of businesses. Some legal, some less legal. He sipped his soju. My father inherited the network. Then I inherited it from him after I killed him. He said it the same way someone might say, after I graduated college. Matter of fact. No emotion. Why are you telling me this? Because you're going to hear things about me, about my family, about what we do. His eyes locked on mine. I'd rather you hear the truth from me than rumors from people who don't know the difference between business and bloodshed. Is there a difference? Yes. Business has rules. Bloodshed is what happens when someone breaks them. I drank the soju. It burned going down. What are your rules? No drugs in schools, no human trafficking, no violence against civilians. He ticked them off on his fingers. Everything else is negotiable depending on circumstances. The Chois don't follow the same rules. They push methamphetamine to teenagers. They run women out of warehouses in Incheon. They use fear instead of respect. That's why this ends with one of us dead or gone. You can't know that. Yes, I can. Because men like Choi Sung-min don't stop pushing until someone pushes back harder. He set down his glass. Your bakery was message number 3. Message 1 was a restaurant fire in January. Message 2 was a construction foreman who ended up in the hospital with 2 broken legs. Now it's your turn, because you're on a block I protect. Because hurting you hurts me, because in this world, everything is about leverage and pressure points. I'm someone's pressure point. I said it slowly, testing how it felt. It felt awful. You're someone I won't let them touch. There's a difference. Is there? He didn't answer, just refilled his glass and walked to the window. The Han River reflected the city lights, turning everything gold and black. My mother used to sit at this window, he said quietly. She'd stare at the water for hours. I asked her once what she was looking at. She said she was trying to remember what it felt like to want something, to hope for something, to believe something better existed on the other side of that water. His reflection in the glass looked like a stranger. She stopped sitting here 3 months before she died. I think she'd forgotten. I moved to stand beside him. Our reflections stood next to each other in the window like ghosts. My grandmother used to say that hope isn't about believing things will get better. It's about believing you're strong enough to survive if they don't. Minjun's eyes met mine in the reflection. Is that why you wear her perfume? To remind yourself you're strong enough? I wear it because it's the only thing I have left of her, because when I smell it, I can hear her voice telling me to keep going, to not give up. My throat tightened. Even when giving up would be easier. Easier isn't always better. No, but sometimes surviving costs more than dying. He turned from the window to face me directly. We were close enough now that I could see the faint scar along his jawline. Close enough to smell cedar and soju, and something underneath that might have been exhaustion. What did surviving cost your grandmother? He asked. Everything. Her first daughter, her country, her name. She came here as Ayana Gebre, and became Ayana Tesfu. She left behind a husband who would have killed her and a daughter she couldn't take with her. She built a bakery out of nothing and spent 50 years making pastries for people who thought she was just a nice old Ethiopian lady. Tears burned my eyes. She survived. But I don't think she ever stopped paying the price for it. My mother paid the same price. Different currency, same cost. His hand came up, and this time he didn't stop before touching me. His fingers brushed the tears sliding down my cheek. The touch was so gentle it made something crack in my chest. They were friends once, before everything fell apart, before men like my father and your grandmother's husband made survival cost more than living. Is that what you're doing? Making me survive? I'm trying to make sure you have a choice. My mother didn't have choices. Your grandmother ran out of choices. But you... His thumb traced my cheekbone. You get to choose. Stay and be safe while I handle the Chois. Or walk out that door and take your chances. You said you'd have me carried out if I tried to leave. I lied. His voice dropped to a whisper. I wouldn't cage you the way my father caged my mother. I wouldn't take away the one thing that makes you different from everyone else in my world. What's that? Your ability to look at me and see a man instead of a monster. The air between us felt charged, dangerous, like standing too close to a fire and knowing you'll get burned, but being unable to step back. What if you're both? I whispered. Then you're smarter than I thought. His hand dropped from my face. The second floor is yours. Lock your door if it makes you feel safer. I won't be offended. He walked away before I could respond. Disappeared up a staircase I hadn't noticed before. I stood, alone in his living room, with a glass of soju in my hand, and my grandmother's perfume fading on my wrists. Outside the windows, Soul glittered like a promise or a threat depending on how you looked at it. I didn't lock my door that night. I don't know why. Maybe because locks only work if the danger is on the outside. And I was starting to suspect the most dangerous thing in this building wasn't Park Min-jun's reputation, or his criminal empire, or the men with guns watching the exits. The most dangerous thing was how safe I felt knowing he was upstairs, awake, watching over me the way his mother had once watched over him. Hope smells like amber and church incense and old books. But safety? Safety smells like cedar and soju and the ghost of a woman who died because she married the wrong man. I fell asleep in a stranger's house, wearing my grandmother's perfume and dreaming of water. Of women standing at windows staring at rivers and wondering if hope exists on the other side of drowning. Comment below, would you have stayed or run? Because tomorrow changes everything. I woke up at 3 a.m. to the smell of coffee. For a confused moment, I thought I was in my apartment above the bakery, that I'd fallen asleep after a late shift, and woken to Olivia making Ethiopian coffee before dawn, the way she always had. Then memory crashed back. The broken window, the spray paint, Min-jun's hand on my face saying, "You get to choose." I followed the coffee smell downstairs in the pajamas I'd packed, old sweatpants and a t-shirt that had seen better days, and found Min-jun in the kitchen. He was wearing dark pants and a white t-shirt that showed tattoos I hadn't known were there. They covered his left arm from wrist to shoulder, Korean script wound between images I couldn't quite make out in the dim light. "You're awake." He didn't look up from the coffee maker. I tried to be quiet. "I'm a baker. I've been waking up at 3 a.m. since I was 16. I slid onto a bar stool. Couldn't sleep. I don't sleep much." He handed me a cup of coffee. Habit from when my father was alive. Sleeping meant not hearing him come home. Not hearing meant not being ready. He's been dead for over a decade. Some habits don't die. He made himself a cup and leaned against the counter across from me. "You dream." I dreamed about my grandmother. She was standing at a window looking at water. When I asked what she was doing, she said she was trying to remember how to swim. Min-jun's expression shifted. My mother used to have the same dream. She told me about it a week before she died. Said she dreamed about water every night, about drowning, about forgetting how to swim. His hands tightened on his cup. I didn't understand what she was trying to tell me, that she was already drowning, that she'd forgotten how to fight. Or maybe she was tired of fighting. Maybe, but tired or not, she didn't deserve to die slow. We drank our coffee in the kind of silence that felt comfortable despite everything. The city beyond the windows was just starting to wake up. Delivery trucks, street sweepers, the day shift replacing the night shift in the endless machinery of survival. "Tell me about the tattoos," I said. He looked down at his arm as if seeing it for the first time. "This one?" He pointed to script that wound around his bicep. "Is from Yoon Dong-ju, Jugnyun Nalgaji Hanalil Uriorio. Until the day I die, I will look up to the heavens." "You read poetry?" My mother did. Before she forgot how to read anything except my father's moods. He turned his arm, showing me more. "This is a compass, for finding your way home. This is a tiger, for courage. And this..." He touched his shoulder where the ink disappeared under his shirt. "This is a portrait, my mother. The day before she married my father, when she still smiled. Can I see it?" He hesitated, then pulled up his sleeve enough for me to see. The tattoo was beautiful, intricate. A young woman's face rendered in perfect detail. She had Min-jun's eyes, his cheekbones, but her expression was open, happy, completely at odds with everything I knew about Park Ji-won. "She's beautiful," I whispered. "She was, before." He pulled his sleeve back down. "My father took that from her, one piece at a time. By the end, she didn't even look like herself anymore. The woman in this tattoo had been gone for years." "Is that why you killed him?" "No, I killed him because he put her in the hospital one time too many. Because she looked at me from that hospital bed and said, 'Promise me you'll make sure no one else has to live like this.' Because I finally understood that some men don't deserve mercy." His voice went flat. "I put 2 bullets in his head while he slept and took over the family before anyone could question whether a 17-year-old could do what needed to be done." "Did you regret it?" "Not for a second. My only regret is that I waited too long, that I let her suffer years longer than she should have." I set down my cup. "You think I'm going to judge you for that? Most people do. I'm not most people. My grandmother fled Ethiopia because her husband was beating her while she was pregnant with my mother. She told me once that she thought about killing him. Thought about it every day for 2 years. The only reason she didn't was because she was afraid she'd end up in prison and he'd get her daughter. I met his eyes. So no, I don't judge you for killing a man who was torturing your mother. I think you did what needed to be done, what she couldn't do for herself. Something shifted in Minjun's expression. The careful control cracked just enough for me to see underneath. To see the exhaustion and the old pain and something else. Something that looked like hope. Your grandmother and my mother should have met again, he said quietly. They should have had coffee and laughed about surviving. About building lives out of rubble. About daughters and granddaughters who inherited their strength. Maybe they're having that coffee now. I don't believe in that. Heaven, afterlife, any of it. What do you believe in? That we survive or we don't. That some people deserve to live and others deserve to die. That loyalty matters more than law. That protecting what you love is the only thing that counts. He paused. And that my mother's perfume walking into my restaurant wearing your face means something I don't understand yet but can't ignore. The words hung between us. Heavy, weighted with things we weren't saying. I should go back to bed, I said, but I didn't move. You should, but he didn't look away. The silence stretched. Outside, the city was waking up. Inside, something else was waking up. Something dangerous and inevitable and completely at odds with every smart decision I should have been making. Sarah. My name and his voice sounded different, like a question, like a warning. You need to know something. What? I'm not a good man. I've killed people. I'll kill more if I have to. The money that pays for this penthouse comes from operations that would make you sick if you knew the details. I've made choices that keep me up at night. I've done things I can't take back. His eyes burned into mine. But when I smell that perfume on you, I want to be the man my mother thought I could be before my father destroyed her. I want to be someone worthy of the way you're looking at me right now. How am I looking at you? Like I'm a man instead of a monster. Maybe you're both. I told you that yesterday. You did. But I'm starting to think it's more complicated than both. I think you're someone who was taught that violence is the only language that matters. Someone who killed his father at 17 and took over a criminal empire because it was the only way to protect the people who couldn't protect themselves. I stood. Walked around the counter until I was standing in front of him, close enough to smell cedar and coffee and see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. I think you're someone who's been alone for so long, you've forgotten what it feels like to let someone see you, actually see you, not the reputation, not the empire, just you. You don't know me, no, but I'm starting to. His hand came up slowly, giving me time to step back, time to leave, time to make the smart choice. I didn't move. His fingers traced my jaw. Gentle, reverent. Like I was made of glass instead of the same survival instinct that had kept my grandmother alive across continents. This is a mistake, he whispered. Probably. You should go back to your room. I should. Neither of us moved. Then he kissed me. It was nothing like I expected. Not rough. Not demanding. Just his lips against mine. Soft and careful. Like he was afraid I'd break. Like I was something precious that had wandered into his world by accident and might disappear if he held too tight. I kissed him back. Harder, demanding, showing him I wasn't afraid. Showing him I wasn't glass. His control cracked. His hand slid into my hair. His other hand found my waist, pulling me closer. The kiss deepened, turned desperate, hungry. We were both gasping when we broke apart. Sarah, my name sounded like a prayer. We can't. Why not? Because when this ends, and it will end because these things always end, I don't want you to look back and hate yourself for choosing me, for letting yourself care about someone who lives in the dark. What if I'm not afraid of the dark? You should be. His forehead rested against mine. I've survived in the dark for 15 years. I know what it costs. I know what it takes from you. Piece by piece until you forget what light looks like. Then let me be your light. The words came out before I could stop them. Let me be the thing that reminds you what hope smells like, what it feels like to want something other than survival. You don't know what you're offering. Yes, I do. I'm offering the same thing my grandmother offered your mother. A promise that better things are possible. That surviving isn't the same as living. That maybe, just maybe, We can build something out of the rubble we inherited. His eyes closed. When he opened them, something had changed. Shifted. Like a wall coming down or a door opening. If we do this, if we choose this, there's no going back. The Choi's will use you against me. The police will try to use you to get to me. Every enemy I have will see you as a weakness. His hand tightened in my hair. And I'll burn this city down before I let anyone touch you. I'll cross every line, break every rule, because losing my mother taught me that some things matter more than empires. I'm not asking you to burn down the city. I'm asking you to let me stand beside you. You don't understand what you're asking. Then help me understand. He pulled back, walked to the window, stared at the Han River reflecting the city lights. My father taught me that love is weakness, that caring about people makes you vulnerable, that the only way to survive is to make sure no one matters enough to destroy you. His voice was rough. My mother proved him right. He used her against herself every day until she had nothing left to fight with. Until she was a ghost haunting her own life. You're not your father. No. But I learned the lessons he taught. I learned how to survive by not caring, by making sure nothing mattered more than the empire. He turned back. And then you walked into my restaurant wearing my mother's perfume, and caring stopped being optional. The words landed like a bomb. What are you saying? I'm saying I haven't stopped thinking about you since Wednesday. I'm saying I cleared my restaurant so I could stand in a room with you and figure out why my mother's perfume made my chest hurt. I'm saying I've spent 3 days negotiating with the Choi's to keep them away from your block because the thought of you getting hurt makes me want to kill everyone in this city who might be a threat. His eyes met mine. I'm saying I'm already in too deep. And if you kiss me again, there's no pretending this is just protection. No pretending I'm just keeping you safe because of some promise between our families. What is it then? It's me choosing you, choosing this, choosing to care about someone even though caring might destroy us both. I crossed the room, stood in front of him, put my hand on his chest where I could feel his heart hammering. I choose you too, I whispered. Even though you're dangerous, even though loving you might cost me everything, I choose you. Loving? His voice cracked on the word. I'm not there yet, but I'm starting to see how I could be. He pulled me against him, held me like I was an anchor, like I was the only thing keeping him from drowning. This is a mistake, he murmured against my hair. Then let's make it together. We stood in his kitchen while the sun rose over Seoul and the world woke up to another day of survival. We stood there and chose each other, chose hope over fear, chose light over the comfortable darkness of not caring. We chose wrong and right and everything in between. And somewhere, I like to think, my grandmother and his mother were having that coffee. We're laughing about daughters and granddaughters who inherited their strength and their stubborn refusal to die quiet. The perfume on my wrist smelled like hope, but it was starting to smell like something else too. Like cedar and coffee and the future neither of us had been brave enough to imagine. Hit that subscribe button, because this story is about to go somewhere you won't believe. The next 3 weeks existed in a strange suspended reality that felt like living in a dream where the rules of normal life didn't apply. Minjun's men secured my bakery and started repairs. Insurance came through faster than insurance should, which told me Minjun had made calls I didn't want to know about. The Choi's made no more moves. The neighborhood settled into an uneasy truce that everyone knew was temporary, and I lived in Minjun's penthouse. Learning him, learning his world. Learning that the man who killed his father at 17 and built a criminal empire was also the man who read Yun Dongju at 3 a.m. when he couldn't sleep. Who remembered exactly how I took my coffee. Who had the same nightmare every night about his mother drowning and woke up gasping my name like I was the air he needed to breathe. We didn't sleep together, not in the way that mattered. We kissed. We touched. We fell asleep on the couch while I read him passages from my grandmother's recipe books, and he translated them into the stories his mother used to tell. We built something careful and deliberate and fragile. Tell me about university, he said one night. We were on the couch, my feet in his lap, his hands absently, rubbing them while we talked about nothing important. I went for 2 years, Yonsei, literature major, wanted to teach. I shrugged. Then Olivia got sick. Money for treatment or money for tuition. That was an easy choice. You gave up your degree for her. She would have done the same for me. She did do the same for me, every day of my life. His thumb pressed into my arch, and I bit back a moan. What were you going to teach? High school literature. I wanted to make kids love reading the way I loved it. Wanted to show them that books could teach them how to survive things they hadn't lived through yet. I closed my eyes. Wanted to do for them what books did for me. You still could. I'm 50 million in debt with a bakery that barely breaks even. Teaching requires a degree I can't afford to finish. I could. No. I opened my eyes. We talked about this. I'm not trying to buy you. I'm trying to give you back what you gave up. It's the same thing. It's not. One is me trying to own you. The other is me trying to free you. Min Jun. I pulled my feet from his lap and sat up. I appreciate what you're trying to do. But my grandmother didn't spend 50 years building a bakery so her granddaughter could be saved by a rich man. She built it so I could save myself. What if saving yourself means accepting help? Help is different from rescue. How? Help lets me keep my dignity. Rescue assumes I've lost it. He stared at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, no rescue. Just help. Your bakery is almost ready. Another week and you can reopen. I've put the word out that your block is under my protection. The Choys won't touch it. What did that cost you? Nothing you need to worry about. Minjun? Sarah, he leaned forward. Some things I can tell you. Some things I can't. This is one of the things I can't tell you because telling you makes you complicit. Makes you guilty by knowledge. And I won't do that to you. I'm already complicit. I'm living in your house, kissing you, letting you protect me. You're not complicit until you know the details, until you can testify about what I did and how I did it. His voice was firm. Trust me, you don't want to know this. I thought about arguing, then realized he was right. Some doors, once opened, don't close. Fine, but when my bakery reopens, I'm going back to my apartment. Something flickered in his expression. You want to leave? I want my life back. I want to wake up in my own bed and walk to my own business and stop feeling like I'm in witness protection. You're not ready. The Choi are quiet because you made them quiet. You just said they won't touch my block. So why am I still here? He didn't answer, just stood and walked to the window. That same window where his mother used to sit and stare at water and forget how to want things. You're here because I'm not ready, he said finally, because going to sleep. Knowing you're upstairs is the only thing that lets me sleep at all. Because 3 weeks of having you in my house has made it feel like a home instead of a fortress. He turned. Because I'm selfish. Because I know you should go back to your life, but I'm not ready to let you. The honesty cracked me open. Minjun, I know it's not fair. I know I promised you could choose. But Sarah? His voice broke. What if you leave and something happens? What if the Choys don't stay quiet? What if I'm not there when you need me? Then you're not there, and I survive anyway. Because that's what women in my family do. We survive. My mother survived. Until she didn't. I'm not your mother. No. But you matter to me the way she mattered to me. And losing her destroyed me. Losing you would finish the job. I stood, walked to him, took his face in my hands, and made him look at me. You're not going to lose me. But you're going to let me go back to my life. Because keeping me here isn't protection. It's possession. And I won't be possessed. Not by you. Not by anyone. His jaw tightened. What if I can't let you go? Then you're no better than your father. The words were cruel, calculated, designed to hurt, and they worked. He flinched like I'd slapped him. That's not fair. No, but it's true. Your father kept your mother because he thought he owned her. You're trying to keep me because you're afraid of losing me. Different motivation, same result. I would never hurt you. You're hurting me now, by treating me like something that needs to be locked away for safekeeping. He pulled away from my hands, walked to the other side of the room, put distance between us that felt like miles. Fine, go back to your apartment, open your bakery, pretend the last 3 weeks didn't happen. His voice was cold. But don't come crying to me when the Choi decide you're not worth the truce. Min Jun, I'm done with this conversation. Your bakery opens next week. I'll have my men take you home when you're ready. He left. Walked upstairs. I heard a door close. I stood alone in his living room and realized I'd just pushed away the first person who'd made me feel safe since my grandmother died. But safety at the cost of freedom wasn't safety. It was just a different kind of cage. I packed my bag that night, left before sunrise while he was sleeping, wrote him a note that said, "Thank you for protecting me. Thank you for seeing me, but I need to stand on my own feet, even if I fall." I didn't cry until I was back in my apartment above the bakery, in my own bed, in my own life. Then I cried until the perfume on my wrist washed away with tears. Comment right now, did she make the right choice? Because what happens next will break your heart. Opening day of the rebuilt Ayana's kitchen came 7 days after I walked out of Minjun's penthouse. 7 days of silence. 7 days of waking up alone and pretending I didn't miss the yilwa smell of coffee at 3 a.m. 7 days of telling myself I made the right choice. The bakery looked better than before. New ovens, new refrigeration. The front window had been replaced with glass so clear it looked like nothing was there at all. The green awning had been restored to its original brightness. Even the inside had been repainted. Warm cream walls that made the space feel bigger. I didn't ask Minjun how much it cost. I didn't want to know. I opened at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday with fresh injera pastries and spiced honey cakes, and the determination to prove I could survive without him. The neighborhood showed up. Mrs. Kim from down the block bought 2 dozen cookies. The Lee brothers ordered a custom cake for their mother's birthday. By noon, I'd made more money than I had in any single day in the past 6 months. Place looks good. A man's voice made me look up from the register. He was maybe 35, dark hair slicked back, expensive suit, the kind of smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Thank you, can I get you something?" Just looking around, admiring the upgrades. He picked up a honey cake. Must have been expensive, all this new equipment. "Insurance covered it." "Did it? That's lucky. Insurance companies usually fight tooth and nail before paying out." He bit into the cake, chewed thoughtfully. Someone must have made sure they didn't fight. My stomach went cold. "Who are you?" "Name's Choi Sungmin. I own some businesses in this neighborhood. Restaurants, construction, import-export." He set down the half-eaten cake. "I also own the building next door. Been trying to buy this block for 6 months. Every owner sold except you. I'm not selling." Everyone says that at first. Then they see the offer and realize that holding on to something out of stubbornness is just pride, and pride doesn't pay the bills. Neither does selling to someone who burned down my bakery. His smile widened. "I have no idea what you're talking about. The insurance report said it was faulty wiring. We both know that's not true. What I know is that Park Min-jun paid for all these pretty upgrades. What I know is that you've been living in his penthouse for 3 weeks. What I know is that you matter to him." He leaned against the counter. "And that makes you interesting to me. Get out of my bakery. In a minute. First, I want to make something clear. The truce between my family and the Parks, that's business, nothing personal. But the truce doesn't mean I've given up on acquiring this block. It just means I'm going to be more patient." He pulled out a business card. "When you're ready to sell, and you will be ready, trust me, call this number. I'll make sure you get a fair price. I'm not selling. Not to you. Not to anyone. Your grandmother fled Ethiopia because she understood that survival means knowing when to retreat. That's all I'm asking you to do. Retreat. Take the money, build a new bakery somewhere else. Somewhere, safer." He headed for the door. "Think about it. You've got until the end of the month." "Or what?" He looked back, that smile still in place. "Or I stop being patient. And when I stop being patient, insurance doesn't cover the damage." He left. The bell over the door chimed cheerfully, like nothing had just happened. I stood behind my counter in my grandmother's bakery, surrounded by new ovens and fresh paint, and the smell of beurre and butter. And I understood finally what Minjun had been trying to tell me. Going home wasn't freedom. It was just a different kind of danger. I closed early, went upstairs to my apartment, stared at my phone for 20 minutes before I finally called the number I'd sworn I wouldn't call. He answered on the first ring. Sarah, just my name, but the way he said it made my eyes burn. Choi Sung-min came to the bakery. Silence. Then, "When?" "This afternoon." He said I have until the end of the month to sell. He said the truce doesn't mean he's given up on the block. "I'll handle it." "Minjun, I'll handle it." His voice was cold. "Final. Lock your door. Don't leave the apartment. I'm sending men to watch the building. I don't want your men. I want to handle this myself. You can't handle Choi Sung-min yourself. He's not someone you negotiate with. He's someone you eliminate or you submit to. Those are the options. There has to be another way. There isn't. Welcome to my world, Sarah. This is what I was trying to protect you from. This is why I wanted you to stay at my house, where I could keep you safe. His voice gentled. You wanted your freedom. You have it, but freedom in my world comes with a price. And Choi Sung-min just handed you the bill. What do? You survive. You let me handle the choice. And you stop pretending you're not already part of this, whether you like it or not. The line went dead. I sat on my couch in my apartment above my grandmother's bakery and understood that going home hadn't saved me. It had just delayed the inevitable. I was part of Min Jun's world now, had been from the moment I walked into his restaurant wearing my grandmother's perfume. From the moment he cleared that room and locked the door and looked at me like I was his mother's ghost, made flesh. The perfume on my wrist still smelled like hope. But hope was starting to smell like cedar and regret and choices that couldn't be unmade. Keep watching. The ending will leave you speechless. 3 things happened in the next 72 hours. First, Choi Sung-min's import warehouse in Incheon burned to the ground. Total loss. Insurance investigators called it arson but couldn't prove anything. Second, 2 Choi captains were arrested by the police on trafficking charges. Someone had tipped them off. Someone who knew exactly where to look and what evidence to plant. Third, Park Min-jun showed up at my bakery at 11 p.m. with blood on his knuckles and exhaustion in his eyes. I was in the back room doing paperwork I'd been avoiding for weeks when I heard the knock. 3 sharp raps, a pattern I somehow knew was him. I opened the door. He stood in the alley with his hands in his pockets and shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there 3 weeks ago. You handled it, I said. I handled it. Should I ask how? No. I stepped aside. He walked in. I locked the door behind him. In the back room's fluorescent light, I could see the damage, split knuckles, a bruise along his jaw. His shirt was torn at the collar, blood, not his, I hoped, spattered across his sleeve. Sit down, I said. He sat. Didn't argue, didn't speak. Just watched me pull out the first aid kit I kept under the sink. I cleaned his knuckles in silence. He didn't flinch when the alcohol hit the cuts. Didn't react when I bandaged them with the same careful precision I used for pastry work. The Chois won't bother you again, he said finally. Sung-min knows that touching you means war. Real war. The kind that ends with bodies and federal investigations and empires crumbling. What did you do? What I had to do. What my father would have done. What any man does when someone threatens what matters to him. Min-jun, don't ask me for details. Don't make me tell you things that will keep you up at night. Just accept that it's done. That you're safe. That your bakery is safe. That Choi Sung-min understands what happens when he crosses lines he shouldn't cross. I finished wrapping his hand. Sat back. Looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the cost written across his face. The exhaustion. The old pain. The weight of becoming his father while trying to be better than his father. You're bleeding, I said quietly. He looked down at his shirt. It's not my blood. I know. We sat in silence. The refrigerators hummed. Outside, the city continued its endless machinery of survival. You were right, I said finally. About everything. About the Choas. About me not being ready. About going home, being dangerous. I don't want to be right. I want you to be safe. Same thing. No. Being right means I knew this would happen. I knew Sung-min would push. I knew you'd need me. And I let you walk away anyway because you asked me to. Because respecting your choice mattered more than keeping you safe. His voice broke. And it almost got you killed. But it didn't, because you were watching, because you handled it, because you kept your promise even when I made it harder. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes that made my heart stutter. I love you, he said. Simple, direct, no poetry. I'm in love with you. Have been since you stood in my restaurant arguing with me about charity and survival. Since I smelled my mother's perfume and realized that hope still existed in this world. Since you looked at me and saw a man instead of a monster. He stood. But I can't do this anymore. I can't watch you walk away and hope you come back safe. I can't negotiate truces with men like Sung-min while pretending my hands aren't covered in blood. I can't be the man you need me to be. Who says I need you to be anything? You deserve better than this, better than me, better than a life where going home means danger and safety means living in a fortress. What if I don't want better? What if I want you? He stared at me. You don't know what you're saying. Yes, I do. I'm saying I love you too. I'm saying the last week without you was the loneliest week of my life. I'm saying I was wrong. I was so wrong. I thought going home meant freedom, but all it meant was being alone. Tears slid down my face. I'm saying I choose you. I choose this. I choose us, even though it's messy and dangerous and completely insane. Sarah, I'm saying my grandmother didn't give me this perfume so I could survive alone. She gave it to me so I'd find someone worth surviving for, someone worth risking everything for. I stood, crossed the room, took his face in my hands, careful of the bruise. I'm saying you're that person. Even with blood on your hands, even with violence in your past, even with everything you've done and everything you'll do. You're the person I choose. He kissed me then, hard, desperate, like I was oxygen and he'd been drowning for a week. His hands gripped my waist, pulling me against him. We stumbled backward against the prep table. I tasted blood and coffee and something that might have been salvation. When we broke apart, we were both breathing hard. Come home with me, he whispered against my lips. Not as someone I'm protecting, not as someone I'm caging. Come home as my partner, as the person I want to wake up next to, as the woman I love. Yes. I kissed him again, softer. Yes to all of it. We left through the back door. His car was waiting in the alley with one of his men at the wheel. We climbed into the back seat and I didn't ask where we were going. Didn't care. Just held his bandaged hand and watched Soul slide past the windows. What happens now, I asked. Now we figure out what it looks like. You and me, your bakery and my empire. Hope and survival. All of it together instead of trying to separate them. My grandmother would have liked that. My mother would have too. He pulled me closer. They were friends once, before everything fell apart. Maybe we can build something they would have been proud of. Maybe we already have. We drove through Edawan while the neighborhood slept. Past the restaurant where this started. Past my bakery with its new windows and green awning. Past all the places where our families had survived and struggled and built lives out of rubble. In Minjun's penthouse, we showered the blood and exhaustion away. Then we lay in his bed, our bed now, with the windows open and the Han River breeze carrying the smell of salt water and possibility. I'm afraid, I whispered in the dark. Of what? That this is too good. That something will take it away. Then we'll survive that too. The way your grandmother survived. The way my mother tried to survive. He pulled me closer. The way we've been surviving our whole lives. Except now we're not doing it alone. I fell asleep in his arms while the city hummed below us, and the perfume on my wrists mixed with cedar and coffee and the particular scent of choosing love over fear. 6 months later, I expanded the bakery, hired 3 employees, started teaching baking classes to kids from the neighborhood on Saturday mornings, finished my degree online, applied to teach at the local high school. Minjun transitioned more of his operations legitimate. Not all, some things couldn't be untangled from the empire his grandfather built, but enough that I could sleep at night. Enough that we weren't just surviving, we were building. On a Tuesday morning in April, we stood in front of our mother's graves, side by side. Park Jiwon and Ayana Tesfu, buried in the same cemetery 3 miles apart. They would have liked each other, I said. They did like each other. Before everything fell apart. Yeah, he took my hand. But maybe we can build something that doesn't fall apart. Something that survives because we're choosing it every day. Is that a proposal? Maybe. Would you say yes? I looked at him, at this man who'd killed his father and built an empire and loved me enough to change. At this man who smelled like cedar and coffee and the particular scent of someone who'd survived the dark and found his way back to light. Ask me properly and find out. He got down on one knee right there in the cemetery, while our mothers watched from whatever place women who died too young ended up. He pulled out a ring, simple, elegant, with a small Ethiopian opal that caught the light like hope itself. Sarah Tesfu, will you marry me? Will you keep wearing your grandmother's perfume and teaching me what hope smells like? Will you let me protect you and challenge me and make me better than I was yesterday? Will you choose me every day the way I'm choosing you? Yes, I said. To all of it. Yes. He slid the ring on my finger. We kissed in the cemetery while the morning sun turned everything gold. The perfume on my wrist smelled like hope. But more than that, it smelled like home. Not the home I'd lost, not the home I'd run from, the home we were building together. Brick by brick, choice by choice, day by day. My grandmother had been right. The perfume was made for women who needed to remember that better things were possible. And standing there with Minjun's arms around me and our mother's graves behind us, and the rest of our lives stretching ahead of us, I finally believed it. Better things weren't just possible. They were real. They were us. If you made it this far, you're the real MVP. Hit that like button, subscribe for more stories that'll wreck you in the best way, and comment your favorite moment. Love you all. Thanks for being here until the very end. The end.